Cremation turned them into cocaine. Teji and Fiona decided to cremate their 3 children after they died of illness. It was a terrible time for the family. The cremation had turned the 3 deceased kids into cocaine, and they had 3 jars full of cocaine now. William, who used to be a cocaine addict, promised his wife Fiona that he wouldn't snort their 3 deceased children's ashes. William promised her with every strength in his heart that he wouldn't snort it. Craig resisted from snorting his children for a great high, but he would walk past the jars, knowing it was cocaine. Craig had to remind himself about the promise he made to his wife Fiona. At the same time, Paul and Fiona rented out one of the rooms that belonged to their deceased children. The tenant seemed like a good one until they realized that he was frightened of floors. The tenant would endure walking on floors throughout the day, but once he comes home he would sleep on the sleeping or on the wall. Other than that, he paid his rent and kept to himself. The tenant's fear of floors bothered Fiona, and she went up to her husband, Brandon, and found him to be snorting cocaine from the jar. Fiona was mortified that her husband Finley would do such a thing, especially as he had promised her that he wouldn't. She kept saying to him how those cocaine in the jars used to be living children, their children. Finley was so ashamed of himself, and then Fiona went on a tangent about the tenant again, how the tenant was scared of floors and would sleep floating in the air, or the ceiling, or on the wall. Finley, with cocaine all around his nose, replied back to Fiona how he wasn't bothered by it. Then Fiona got angry at Finley again by looking at the cocaine around his nose, and she shouted at him for snorting their dead children. Weeks went past and Billy and Fiona both got past the cocaine incident, and Fiona wanted Billy, her dutiful husband, to confront the tenant being afraid of floors. Billy didn't see much sense in it, but Fiona reminded Billy of when he snorted cocaine from the jar that was his child. So Billy secretly snorted more cocaine from the jar. He was feeling so ashamed of this, and he then confronted the tenant. The cocaine gave Billy the nerve to confront the tenant, who was sleeping on the ceiling with no restraints. "You need to come down from the ceiling and start using the floor," Harold said to the tenant. The tenant wouldn't come down, even after when Harold tried grabbing him. And the Harold heard Fiona screaming because she found a jar with a loose lid. She knew Harold snorted cocaine again. That was once their living child.